Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We're about to wrap up. But, now the dessert of this wonderful meal. Thank you, Juan, for joining us. Juan is responsible for industrial coordination at the ministry. We close hand in hand with a very important person, Mr. Caputo, the minister who is implementing a very significant transformation in Argentina. So how are you experiencing this economic reset in Argentina? What are the main achievements so far? First of all, thank you very much for your invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I loved that word, reset, the economic reset you mentioned. Because, that was not part in my mind, but I'm going to steal it. Yeah, no copyright, so you can rob me of this word, no problem. When we took office, what I came across with was a devastated country. Yeah, a country completely closed to the rest of the world. I mean, lots of corruption, waste, clientelism, cronyism. What I had to deal with in my office, knowledge, information, industry, agriculture. That was an oversized state, hyper-regulated. And, the vision of the ministry was biased, partial about the role of the private sector, of course. And, of course, we were enduring the negative consequences of the policies implemented in the last 4 years. I always tell the same story. The first week in office, we tried to understand the commercial debt of the country, and we had 3 different figures. Customs, the Secretary of Commerce. We all had different numbers, and if we did not settle this debt, Argentina imports, and 80% is imports. But we could not interrupt this chain. We had to create a record to see the figure, the volume, and the solution we might find. And this was a good exercise and a good example of what we received. I remember a data center. We wanted to find out the price of, the milk in one of the cities. Automatic and non-automatic licenses for imports. Of course, after 40 years, that was very difficult. Fiscal appraisal code to know whether the business could submit, balances to the tax authorities, crossed subsidies, different exchange rates, for importers and exporters. Everything was fictitious. And I think the biggest challenge was, no doubt, to reset the economic mindset. And, same thing as with the president and the minister. We had to provide a kind of credibility shock. There is no credibility in our society, especially vis-à-vis the areas we coordinate, management. And as this decision was made initially, and thanks to the president's beliefs and conviction, we were able to reduce the fiscal deficit by 5% over the first month. Then we kept walking along this pathway, because that had to do with the issuance of bonds, etc. We had to create credibility by lifting hurdles, easing businesses' lives. We had to create conditions, new conditions, to be more investment-friendly, because our main role is this. And I believe that gradually we've been able to do so. I come from the private sector, mind you. So So you have experience in the textile industry, right? Yes. When people talk to me about imbalances, competitive markets, I understand. I come from the textile markets, covering from the US to Argentina, all of the Americas. I know the balance and imbalance of a closed industry in Argentina. That's why we face so many challenges. But I think the first message we wanted to convey was that we are for production, and that we believe that our key role is to create the ideal conditions for economic recovery, and there is no economic recovery without a good macro economy. Until November last year, I kept, doing numbers for 2025. I had different figures depending on the economist I followed. Very pessimistic, very optimistic. Optimistics are far, far, far from the current situation we face. And, I dare you, if you have ever seen the 2025 budget, have you ever seen something similar to our current situation? No. We believe that this economic reset, to use the same word, the economic reset has been very successful. What you mentioned about the goals, fiscal balance, lower inflation, all of that has been very successful. Yes, and that will allow us to plan for a future, for future growth. Because, when we took office, the first thing we were analyzing and discussing with the minister was the percentage of private loans over GDP, 3.4%. It's impossible for an economy to grow without access to capital markets, without loans. And remember the country risk level back then, because growing countries need access to funding. So another huge challenge is that, exactly that. The state should stop capturing pesos. Pesos should go to production. How do you do it? Well, that's what the minister has achieved by taking deficit to a zero level and having a surplus, primary surplus and financial surplus. And they stopped capturing pesos from the market. So this surplus is going back to production. Now we have loans again in Argentina. We see some growth indicators in our economy that has to do with access to credit. And that's the way to go. We have to be a normal country, which is no minor task. Of course not. Last week I was in Paris with Karina Millet, the president's private secretary, and we had a meeting with the French economy minister. Oh, yeah, I knew you had traveled to Europe. So what was your perception? What did you see there regarding Argentina and Latin America? Well, the first thing was that the reduction in the deficit will be a case study. The French government has to lower it by 5% in 5 years. When we described our changes without affecting social plans, without affecting the economy at large, they felt that we were giving them fresh air and that they were able to trust us. And they understand that this construction of credibility should be based on these structural measures, because it has to do with the macroeconomy and also with commercial relationships. What I see that it was very difficult to negotiate. To open up the market if you are a closed economy. The first 2 months, I kept meeting with ambassadors and businesses because they wanted to know when we were going to pay our debt with them. See how we were going to operate in a market where we had so many technical rules which were hindering the inflow of goods into Argentina. And when they started to see that all these different layers of regulations were being lifted, they started to give us opportunities, and we found opportunities to open the market fully, because we have to select markets to start working with. You visited Europe, and now we see in this context of regionalization that what Latin America should do is to embrace the Western value chains where we can compete because we share values, nearshoring, friendshoring. That's the way ahead. I mean, what do you think? Do you think we might strike a deal finally? I mean, Mercosur and the European Union. What do you think? What's your uptake on this? I am highly optimistic. I believe that the Foreign Office in recent months has been fantastic. They've been very good at trying to accelerate this agreement between Mercosur and the European Union. This is bearing fruit. I also met with a representative of Trade and Commerce, Agriculture, and Foreign Affairs, the European Union, I mean, and on everyone, all of them, agreed that we were reaching the final stages of this process. And obviously, there is still a few obstacles. I mean the French, or Poland and Ireland. But I am optimistic because when I met with governments who were not sure if they wanted to support the agreement, but I also met businesses that were very supportive, and the agreement would make their life much easier to trade with us. So, this was a step forward. Yeah, also the accession into the OECD, to have more funds to invest in Argentina, to provide strategic inputs to Europe. You also traveled to the States, right? Yeah. We believe that the Americas, all of the Americas, with more integration, is the right way ahead. What did you see in the U.S. regarding this new Argentina? And what do you think of the elections in the U.S.? I'm not going to ask you who's going to win, but what do you think? I mean, the different scenarios. If Trump wins or if Harris wins, what do you think? What did you notice? Well, the first 10 months, I've been sort of blindfolded, focused on the future horizon, trying to tidy up, I would say, the different areas under my control. And then we started focusing on the international agenda. The image we have conveyed, my first trip was to the States. And the goal was, the result of the election doesn't matter. We have a strategic alliance with the U.S., which does not depend on who wins the election. This is a strategic relationship by Argentina with countries who are democratic and who defend free market and respect private property. And I think this is a message we were able to convey. We met with many state representatives, the Atlantic Council, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We had bilateral meetings, members of Congress from both parties. And I think there is a clear idea that Argentina is offering something different, a new opportunity. And I have to admit it, this phenomenon created by President Milei globally, it's most impressive. And they look at us as a country because maybe today many of the things being done by Argentina, what analysts is what analysts' request from central countries, and we are doing it consistently. And this, I mean, is like a beacon of hope for our country, a huge opportunity. So you traveled to Europe, to the US, and shortly you will be traveling to China. And this, you know, makes us curious. What's a potential agreement? What are the plans of the government regarding China? Well, as the president has said, China is a very important trade partner. It's a relevant partner. I will visit the most important food fair. This is held in China. It's important for Argentina to open up new markets. And I will also go to Japan. There are companies. I mean, companies are very interested. I mean, both Japanese and Chinese businesses want to understand how the RIGI works, what sectors can be chosen by these companies to offer their services, to operate. I think that somehow or other, sometimes, you know, we have to, I mean, what we have to remember is that Argentina has changed its productive matrix. And, you know, but if 3 of these the mining processes come to good fruition, I mean, copper and lithium, you know, the RIGI, a deployment of 40% over the first 2 years, you know, part of that has to be channeled into infrastructure and local inputs, you know. And all of that, copper and lithium alone. And I think that today, thank God, we have a unique opportunity on our hands. We provide oil and gas, we have copper, we have lithium, and we have the ability to provide food security to the world and a strategic position. We are far away from armed conflicts. And, you know, clearly, trade in primary goods with China can grow. And we have to trade smartly. Yeah, there is no doubt that dynamic sectors that we see in Argentina to start a new investment stage. These agriculture, cattle, knowledge industry, energy. The challenge for all of us in the metallurgy chain is how to be part of this development, how we can embark on this venture, because, I mean, this venture that will take Argentina to a new stage of sustained growth. The country you have described is like the basic requirement. We used to be an abnormal country. Now we're about to become a normal country. Our feeling that this is a prerequisite, a very valuable prerequisite, but this is not enough, in the sense that we have to open our doors to the world. A closed country cannot exist. But we have competitive issues. We want to open up, but we have a very costly value addition because of distortive taxes, you know, municipal taxes, etc. You add, and then the addition of value is extremely onerous. So thank you, because throughout this year we will have to discuss all of these topics. But we are concerned about this. How can we gain internal competitiveness as a country? I mean, in internal, this is innovation, resolve inefficiencies, and from the external point of view, we need a more competitive country because we are competing against more competitive countries. So where are we standing in the government's agenda? Well, first of all, we share this view as a textile businessman. Well, yes, as a farmer, as a retailer, yes. I always say that there is a lot of incompatibility in my different roles. But, there is a clear idea. I love it when the president says that business people and farmers in Argentina are heroes. And they have developed their sectors despite Argentina, and not the opposite. And what I believe that the upcoming challenge is to tackle competitiveness. We understand that the tax burden is completely distortive. And I also know that the inflow of products into Argentina is highly distortive. I have another opinion. Mercosur is one of the regional commercial blocks, which is maybe one of the with the least openness, with the least intra-regional trade, less than Africa, less than Europe or the Pacific Treaty. And today, the first thing I see is the president's belief and the minister's belief that every fiscal surplus should go into lower taxes. I mean, we have to lower taxes. I don't remember when a tax was created and then eliminated. So, also, secondly, we all have to work together because it's useless to make a huge effort, I mean, the government, to reduce the deficit, to make or to ask citizens and business people to make a huge effort, and then mayor authorities increase taxes and give you nothing in return. We have to work together. Yeah, because many of these distortive taxes are provincial taxes, local taxes. Yes, but we have to raise awareness among provinces, municipalities, the cities. You know, that's what the national government is trying to do. Having said this, you know, I don't remember when, May, I had a meeting with the copper governors, and these 6 governors spoke about fiscal surplus and reduced costs. I thought I was in Narnia, on another planet. That happened in Argentina in the last 6 months. And people voted for a president who said what he was going to do, and he's doing exactly that. And he's making all the necessary measures to defend and implement this plan. So, for Argentina to grow, you are present in other countries in the region, so you know it is much easier to grow when you have stable macroeconomic conditions, if you are a kind of normal country with access to credit. And also, if you are predictable, because many of us over the last few years, we were like astrologists, I would say. We had to read the horoscope because we were subjected to the whims of public officials. We were not able to make plans. If you ask me, what's the most important thing you have done since you took office? Well, creating predictability, generating the conditions for you to operate. And maybe, lastly, we should not be enemies. We should be allies, friends. We need you. Without investments, yeah, you know, for me and for all of us, it's important that you come from the industry, because you know what we speak about. We have to generate quality employment. We have to be allies. We have to add value. And Argentina has a huge opportunity. I was telling you that before, remember? Today, maybe you meet with someone abroad, and instead of meeting investment funds and speak about bonds, you meet with companies who want to invest. Yeah, they want to invest in Argentina's strategic assets. And this shift is huge. And we have a huge opportunity, a one-of-a-kind opportunity.
And I want to tell you, please leverage that opportunity. Please take advantage of it. Take advantage of us, because we are here to help you. A last question, because we are late already. You mentioned the RIGI. It is quite sectorized, but very important for some things, for some project amounts. And the metal mechanic chain, where there are a lot of SMEs, they need to work on competitiveness, they need to reinvest, they need to pay dividends, they need to be able to have accelerated depreciation. You see in the short term, do you see a measure to help the value chain, to help the SMEs, because they have to make an investment that does not qualify as a BPU of the RIGI, and they want to have conditions to accelerate the investment process? Yes, the Cabinet Chief of Staff talked about that. We are working on a productive investment regime, including these issues like accelerated depreciation of capital assets, a specific bonus for the value-added tax to create jobs on a gradual basis, because we cannot touch the fiscal revenue now, but we are thinking about changing things. The minister sent me to a meeting in Santa Fe, in Vaca Muerta, and 2 weeks ago I had the same thing with companies from Córdoba that were going to San Juan to provide services to the mining industry. There was a lot of reconversion of industries that is going to provide services and machinery for some of the RIGI projects. And I believe that when these funds are injected into the real economy, the capillarity of these projects is enormous. We've seen a lot of clients of ours that do car parts or agricultural machinery that became providers of the mining industry and the oil industry. We've seen that machinery industry is going to be benefited by this accelerated depreciation. The irrigation equipment to expand the productive borders. If we achieve generating a macroeconomic framework like the one that we have seen in the last 10 months, many of these industries are going to be able to achieve an enormous growth. The other day, I met one of these large companies, and I told them that the last tractors I had bought them cash. I cannot believe that. In no other country in the world do you see that. Well, Juan, thank you very much. Tell the minister that for the next stage, which is stage 2 of growth of Argentina, you are going to find a value chain eager to invest and work with the private and public sector in order to reindustrialize, because industry generates jobs, development, and we believe that's the opportunity. But we need to work together for that to be possible. Thank you very much. We thank Juan for his presence.